Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So we're here today with Bruno Cignacco, who used to be an accountant, right? He's actually from Argentina. So we've got to, and again, one of the things is we've got to listen carefully. You've got a funny accent from the UK, which is myself. And then you've got a funny accent from Argentina, who's now in the UK as well. So it's more the UK side that I'm sure it'll make some of my US listeners more difficult to hear and understand. So, but I'll speak slowly so that everybody can understand me at least. Okay. And then, but the good thing about Bruno, and the reason why he came on is because he's really gone more into the training side of things, right? So he's really focused on human training, right? Making sure that we are, as business leaders, we're thinking about people, right? And obviously within accounting firms, people are so important that we need to know how to manage them effectively, right? And at the end of the day, people have different needs, right? We need to be compassionate. And you're also the author of The Art of Compassionate Business, right? So a lot of these things, and also being a lecturer, right? So I've taught many people on these types of theories and the ways to do it. So rather than myself and the way that I do it, it's better bringing on Bruno, who's an expert, and he knows how to manage people, right? He's wrote the books on it, he's done it. So, and he's also been an accountant, right? So he's been in those shoes. So without further ado, Bruno, nice to have you on. Thank you for joining. And do you want to give a little bit of a background about yourself so everyone knows who you are, and a bit of a background about what you do now as well? That'd be super helpful.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the invite. I feel very honored to be here. And I want to comment a bit about my background. I started as an accountant. Approximately 8 to 9 years, I was working as an accountant, doing taxes, auditing, merger and acquisitions, to cost calculations, prospection, budgeting, all this type of activity that accountants are very keen on. And then slowly I transitioned into consultancy. I started setting up my own consultancy company. This was 30 years ago. And my consultancy company is still on. And we've started focusing on international trade activities. This means import-export activities, advisory on international negotiation with suppliers and buyers, also making contact between suppliers and buyers, and in some cases also international market research, for example, cross-cultural market research, to know how to adapt the product to different cultural environments, but also we deal also with international investment and also training on international trade, for example, documents, logistics, international logistics, containerization, and other aspects. Over the last few years, I would say 6 years, we started another business unit that is on compassionate business. Compassionate business is a very broad category which includes, for example, training on how to develop mindful communication in the workplace, or how to develop a much kinder, a much warmer workplace, which will bring about positive effect on productivity, profitability, efficiency. But also we train also on other aspects such as compassionate customer service, how to treat customer with an attitude of service instead of adopting a selling attitude. And other type of training that we call non-traditional training. I'm also a professor at universities here in the UK and abroad. And I have been researching a lot on this topic, especially on compassionate business, on the last few years. And as you mentioned, this was coronated by my latest book, The Art of Compassionate Business, published in its second edition by Routledge, which includes hundreds of examples of companies that are compassionate.
So now, especially in the US right here, and again, I know that you're in the UK, I've been there, right, but more so in the US market when we talk about accounting firms, right, we've got a big driving factor of we need to change the way firms work, right, in order to attract new talent to the profession, right? And that means there's been a big focus on culturally making a big change in the way firms are run, right? The way that we treat our employees, the way that we provide more flexibility around the seasonality of a lot of the work and the tax work and the audit deadlines and things that go on year round here, which has sort of been common nature, right? That has been built up into the profession, which again, now there is a decline in people not wanting to get into that type of thing because there's been a huge shift in, again, they say younger generations, but also people that have had the taste of not having those types of deadlines or having more flexibility of work from home. They now don't want to go back into what they were doing previously. So can you maybe share some ideas or areas that you would say that even just from a starting point where partners or owners should be thinking about these are the things we need to be considering when creating a strong environment for a very mixed generational team, right? Because at the end of the day, we're now in a place as well in time where we have the most generations that have been all in the workforce, right? So what does that look like?
Yes. First of all, we have to set up a series of principles that are very important and can be applied to an accounting studio and other companies too. First of all, many companies get confused and they think that the most important resource in an organization, for example, an accounting studio, is artificial intelligence or technology or information or contacts. But the most important factor, according to my research and according to 30 years of experience advising company, is the human being. You have to care as the leader of an accounting studio or as working with other colleagues for the human being. This means for other colleagues, for your clients, customers, for the suppliers of this company, and for the community members. Why? Because the human being is the one generating business models. The human being is the one developing new products and services. The human being is in interaction with other stakeholders. When you care for the human being, what I call qualitative aspect of business means fostering a strong, long-lasting relationship with colleagues within the workplace, but also with other stakeholders, with customers, with suppliers, with community members, with business partners. The key performance indicators such as productivity, profitability, efficiency, market share, they are taken care by themselves. They are achieved effortlessly. Why? Because when people are feeling that they are taken care of, they are being appreciated, they are being, for example, valued, they feel that they count, people are more likely to go the extra mile. Instead, when you focus only on what can be measured, what can be counted, for example, profitability, or how many new clients we have, or how much market share we have, in some cases, you go to the extreme. You tend to achieve this key performance indicator by all means. In some cases, for example, exploiting employees, treating customers in an unkind way, treating suppliers and developing win-lose agreement with suppliers. So first off, we have to understand that there are two separate factors in business and both are equally important. Quantitative aspects of business are very important because they're important for business survival, but also for business success. Profit, market share, this can be measured very precisely. However, many companies, and I observe some service companies, in the case of, for example, legal services and also other type of service, professional services, that they focus only on quantitative aspect, what can be measured, what can be counted, but they forget what I call qualitative aspect, the relational aspect, what help build a strong, long-lasting relationship with these stakeholders, internally within the company and externally. And what are these qualitative aspects of business? Camaraderie, compassion, support, gratitude, appreciation. Very little gestures that make a lot of difference. I give you an example of a very important piece of research. There is an interesting study that observed that when you foster a warm, loving, the researcher called this work environment, a loving work environment where people support one another, what we call, technically speaking, a psychologically safe workplace. When people feel at ease, they can provide others with their opinions, they can offer constructive criticism, they can try innovative ideas, and they can be supportive when there are challenges. These workplaces tend to bring about lower absenteeism, lower turnover, higher employee satisfaction, higher customer satisfaction. Why? Because employees that are happy tend to serve customers more effectively. Employees that are unhappy, how do you expect them to serve clients or customers? They won't be very effective. But also, this workplace tend to bring about a very important aspect, that is lower stress levels, and also they tend to bring about a positive impact on the bottom line. So my first principle will be, are we fostering this qualitative aspect of business in the workplace, or are we focused only on what can be measured? A very famous thinker observed, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So in some cases, we're focusing on the wrong parameters. I'm not saying that we have to dismiss profit or we have to dismiss market share. This is very important, but there should be an equilibrium, a balance between quantitative aspect of business and qualitative aspect of business. Because at the end, who generate the profits? Who generate more market share? People. And people are interdependent. You cannot succeed without people. You cannot succeed without employees. You cannot succeed without suppliers. We cannot succeed without customers, without the community members. And there is another principle, that is interdependence. This means that you are not on your own. You rely on others. Wouldn't it be nice to have everyone on your side, building a strong, long-lasting relationship with the stakeholder? So very important for listeners, look into the qualitative aspect of business. And in order to look into this aspect, you can ask some self-reflection questions such as, how can I be more supportive with this stakeholder, for example, a colleague? Or how can I be more supportive with this customer? Because when you're supportive with this colleague is more likely to reciprocate. They will support you when you need. Instead, when you are self-centered and you are isolated from others, for example, colleagues in the workplace, or you don't support customers, what you expect? The customer won't leave positive reviews if you don't support them. You are not treating them in a kind way, in a supportive way. You're not assisting them, and this customer will find very easily companies that were likely to support them. So very important, when you apply this principle, for example, generosity, gratitude, and others that I describe in my book much more in detail, you are more likely to generate a positive cycle of reciprocity. That is a very important social principle. Instead, when you use negative principles, being unkind, being ungenerous, being non-compassionate, well, you generate a negative cycle. And in some cases, you generate a workplace of fear. What I observe when I advise companies is so sad. In some cases, big companies in all sectors, you see workplaces where employees are fearful of, for example, giving their opinions, or being fired, or, for example, rocking the boat, or proposing ideas that are non-traditional. When you are fearful as an employee or any other stakeholder, you don't make good decisions. Your discerning skills are temporarily impaired. You are less creative, less productive, and you tend to be more stressed, and this can affect your performance in a negative way. So caring for people is caring for the business, because the building brick of any business endeavor is the human being. The human being is a meta resource. It's a resource that generates other resources. The human being generates business model, new products, new services. So we have to care for the most valuable resource in any business, including accounting studios.
So when we talk about, again, a balance between the qualitative and the quantitative, right, side of working, right, at the end of the day, because I stress this, like when we're working with international teams, right, putting together processes, having KPIs, right, and again, there needs to be a balance between that and ensuring that you're sitting down and having conversations, communicating, treating them like people, right, having, again, conversations outside of work. But then there needs to be both, and there needs to be a balance. So, like, how does somebody, like, how does an accounting firm or what does a partner need to consider what that balance looks like, right, in a business?
Balance,
what's the most effective balance?
Yeah. The most effective balance is that human beings are complex, are the most important factor in any business, including accounting studios, but also they are complex. They are not having only economic needs. What I observe that many companies focus only on economic needs. For example, paying an employee a good salary. This will be a nice economic need. But what happened? Employees and any other stakeholder like customer or supplier have emotional needs. They need to be validated. They need to be appreciated. Supposing that an employee was working overtime for months to achieve a very important deadline, and the manager of this employee look at this employee and take this employee for granted. Not even a thank you letter, not even a little event to celebrate this achievement. This employee feel unappreciated, and this employee next time will not work the extra time because might feel resentful, might feel that they haven't been appreciative with them. So this means, and this employee, even they might earn a good salary, they don't have this emotional need met and might look for other companies that might be more appreciative. So they have economic need, emotional need, they have mental needs. I observe some companies that continually put employees in a situation that they are demotivating this employee. Why? Because they make this employee do once and again the same task. What about experimenting within the company job rotation? For example, in an accounting studio, if you are working on auditing area, what about working in the cost calculation area? Or what about in the financial statement area? So try to make people have access to novel knowledge. This means that they can be stimulated. They cannot be bored. When people are bored, they tend to be unproductive. So mental needs. But what about social needs? I observe that many companies, employees, they are not connecting to one another. They feel isolated. They feel unsupported. And we're talking about employees that work remote, as a remote work, or can work in the same place, the same premises. They're not connecting to one another because the projects are very compartmentalized, and they are not connecting to others. They don't know the final result in many cases. It's important for companies to develop ventures that are collective ventures, where everyone can contribute, can interact, can exchange ideas. This is quite important because people have social needs. We are beings with affinity need. We need to connect to one another, not only for our survival, but also in work. We saw the workplace is interdependent. In some cases, the areas connect to one another in complex projects to bring about the final product. So economic needs, emotional needs, mental needs, and social needs. Do not focus only on economic needs because, and this applies to any other stakeholder, for example, customer, clients, and also suppliers. Many companies have only an economic orientation on the needs of stakeholders.
Yeah, it's super helpful, and it's very very necessary to think about it right now, because I think that's where, as we look at the profession, right, more and more teams are becoming global teams, or we're working with team members that are nationwide at least, and they're not all in an office. We don't have that water cooler effect where you can go and stand in the kitchen and talk to people and have those sort of normal conversations anymore. So there needs to be a specific effort made to ensure that you're still embracing your team members from a virtual perspective, because again, yes, they like a paycheck, right? But generally most people don't just want to come in for a paycheck, right? They have certain things going on in their life, and if you're not embracing and trying to be part of that to some extent, right, they're not going to stay long term, right? Because they've got nothing else that's really holding them to the job or the place where they are, right, in a lot of cases. So, and now, and also from an economic perspective, right, I mean, we have raising salaries because we have a reduction in the amount of people available in some cases, but I don't think that that's a sustainable way, saying, hey, listen, no, we need to just raise salaries, right? There are a lot of things where there are a lot of other factors, like you're saying, that need to be taken into account, where if you provide a better environment, you're more than likely going to retain people and attract more people, right, to that better environment than just for a better salary. right? So now, out of interest, when we're looking at this for an accounting firm specifically, right? There's just a lot of factors that are coming into it when it comes to these global workforces now. So, and it comes to the communication aspect, it comes to, again, embracing them as part of the team. Now, a lot of these people are not part of their teams full time. They are contractors or they're using a third party vendor, right? When it comes to still working with them, they're people at the end of the day, but there's generally different time zones that come into effect and all these other aspects. I mean, do you have any advice to ensuring that you're retaining that side of things in terms of retaining the same people and those types of aspects?
To retain people is very important. I don't like the word so much retain, but to keep people committed and loyal to your company, it will be more appropriate. We have to understand that people have a very important need. They need to feel competent and they need to feel supported. These are two very important needs. Competent means that it's very disgusting for most people to be micromanaged, to be treated like naughty children, that they don't know what they are doing. If you are the manager and you have people that are, obviously you are controlling these people, you can set general guidelines that these subordinates should follow, but then you trust them for them to work in the best way possible. If they need additional training, you provide it with training, you provide with coaching, with mentoring, whenever possible. But what I observe that many companies tend to be continually controlling what they are doing, and the employee feel threatened, they feel unsupported, they feel like they might make a mistake and might be fired. So trusting and avoiding micromanage, how you do this? With delegation. So you set up the general guidelines and then you delegate and you trust their expertise, their experience, and then you can obviously monitor what they did and you can offer a constructive feedback to them. This is one important point. But another point that I observe in many companies is the fear of uncertainty. Many employees have a fear of uncertainty. In some cases, especially with remote work, they don't know how to act. In some cases, they don't know who to talk to. Well, there should be a person that will be the one that these people can resort to if they have any doubts. There should be also some resources that are available. I see some companies that offer, for example, free coaching for employees, or they offer free online workshops so that the employees, if they have some doubt about specific skills, they can browse this a database of workshops and they can choose the most appropriate one. But also, some companies go a step further. They have a mentoring scheme. Maybe the person with much more experience can support this employee, because at the end, you want to allow them to thrive and to unleash their skills and their potential, but at the same time, you want to support them and also enhance their capability whenever possible with this training and support activities. So there should be a balance between supporting these employees when needed, but also allowing them to apply their skills without micromanaging them, because micromanaging is always based on fear. When the manager is continually checking, you made this report, or let me check, and they don't allow employee to decide and use their discerning skill in an insightful way, well, this employee might feel fearful, and we saw the effect of fear. Fear make people feel much more incompetent, and they tend to be much more unproductive, and so on. So is there any support place in the workplace that help this employee in case that they have any doubt? And especially when a company goes through big transformation, for example, partnering up with another company. Well, how should employees will act with this partnership? Are there any new responsibility? Should employees be informed of the new responsibility? Who can they resort to if they have any doubt? In some cases, employees don't know who to resort to. Who is the one to resort to? But in some cases, some companies go a bit further. Employees, in some cases, in an environment that are very stressful, they feel a bit emotionally unstable. I observe some companies, especially consultancy companies here in the UK, that they have some counseling services. If the employee feel a bit stressed, they offer this employee free counseling sessions so that the employee can comment about their problem, their challenges, their fears, because at the end, employees are human beings. Before being employees, they are human beings. And they, like all human beings, they have fear, they have expectation, they have positive experience. So you have to care for the human being. So these are important support structures that help a company keep this employee loyal and keep this employee committed. So, but we don't have to forget to address all these type of needs of the employee: economic needs, emotional needs, mental needs, and social needs too.
Yeah, and that's definitely something here. I mean, again, I've seen it firsthand, right, in terms of even in the benefit side of things, right? I mean, mental health is like a huge push right over here. And again, there's different options for firms to go in and add that right within their benefit plans so that people can have it, right? I think one of the firms I worked at had that, right? So it's becoming more and more common, right, in terms of even rolling into benefit packages and things like that. But one of the things you did mention that is around that uncertainty piece, right? And this is especially when we're dealing with the offshore teams, right? Is identifying champions, right? People that know the way that you work, know the way that your business is running, making sure that they're the people that are helping new team members come on board. And again, you see like buddy systems, you see different ways of doing it, but making sure we have that champion and identifying a clear career development. Right, because again, that uncertainty comes in different ways. Where, again, when it comes to offshore teams too, it's that they don't know their next step, right, in their career, right? They want to develop, right? So you've got to make sure it's very clear, and I think that's where it's not always defined as well in some firms. So maybe focusing on that to some extent that firms can work on too. So as we come to the sort of top of the hour. Bruno, really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit today. Now, do you want to just give a quick spiel of, again, the book that you've recently released, right, where they can get it and where they can reach out to you if anybody has any questions and wanted to dig into this a bit more?
Yes, thank you very much. The book is titled The Art of Compassionate Business. It can be found online and offline in any bookshop, for example, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and others. But this book has hundreds of cases of companies that are compassionate and also from different sectors, service sector, manufacturing companies, and others. And they can find me on LinkedIn. They can check my profile on LinkedIn, and they can find my websites that are www.brunosignaco.com and www.humanorientedenterprise.com.
Perfect. And again, everybody, I think it's one of those things that we need to be thinking about, right? It's a journey, right? There's lots of different ways that you can do it in your business, but as we know in the accounting field, like people are hugely valuable, right, to the business itself, right? So I think this is just an important factor that we should be looking at, and it's different for every business, different ways you can do it, but it's just a very important piece of the puzzle, essentially, to ensure that you are now working on your talent, improving your talent constantly, and making your place an attractive place to work for people. So really, really appreciate it, Bruno.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. I hope you had a good episode on Business Beyond Borders, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.